I was in Philippines and I was about like 11 years old. I was about to travel here to Guam and move out here. It was my last year in 5th grade. So me and my friends were into the supernatural and stuff. We had decided that for my last day of school there, we would explore this haunted house that was like at the base of the hill. And it wasn't like a big hill, it was like a mound and stuff. So we went down there and there was 5 of us. And all 4 of my friends went before me and they tried to open the door. But the thing was, it didn't open for them. They said it's a haunted house. It was actually one of the caretakers' houses because our school was built on top of a cemetery. So that was technically the caretaker's house. The rumor in the school was that the caretaker had a wife and the wife couldn't bear children. So she hung herself because she felt like she couldn't have a family that she can create since she couldn't get pregnant. It never got proven. There was no evidence because there was like way back. So I was like, oh, I'm excited. Let me try. I'm the last one to try. Let me see if I can open it. Right when I reached the knob and I haven't even turned it yet, it just pulled me in. And I let go because I was in shock because I was like, well, how come it didn't open for them? And I turned around and I see them screaming up the hill. So what do? I'm scared too, so I scream up the hill with them. I was like, why'd you guys leave me? And they're like, dude, there was a lady at the window looking at you. And I'm just like, what? We didn't see anybody. But she was beckoning you to come inside. That's why the door opened for you. And I was like, what? Wait. I didn't see the lady. I didn't see anybody. I just got pulled in. So like my friends were describing how the lady looked like, and she had like really long ginger hair. She was in a white gown and she looked really pretty. But when I got to Guam, I saw her for the first time right before my birthday. There were 7 of us on the table, and the table is like rectangular. I was sitting at the end because I was the special person, and my cake was here, and everybody was on the side, sitting down, and like they had turned off most of the lights so that it's just the candles they're illuminating the dining area. As I saw the smoke floating up and stuff, I saw her right across the dining table. And I was like, whoa, she looked like a real person because her reflection on the dining table, our dining table was glass. Right when I blew out the candles, she was there. So her reflection was also reflecting on the dining table, like she was just standing there. And I'm just like, did anybody else see that? And they're all looking at me because I'm the one blowing the candle, so they're paying attention to me. They weren't paying attention to anything else. And I was like, did you guys see that? I was like, whoa. I started thinking about what my friends were telling me about how the lady looked like. And I started piecing it together. Oh my God, this is the lady. She followed me from Philippines. So I was like, what is going on? Is she haunting me for some reason? Or what's the reason why she came up to me? When I gave birth to my daughter, she was probably like 3-4 months old, and she kept looking at a certain direction. Like she looked like she was looking at me, but I knew she was looking at something past me. So I would always feel like maybe she's playing with somebody that she can't see. When she was like about a year old or so, she started mumbling things. Like she was trying to make sentences and just talk to this wall. She would always be facing this wall, and she would be like trying to make conversations. And I'm just like, what is going on? A couple of days after that, I saw her again, and she was asking for permission to share the motherhood that I had with my daughter. We spoke to each other. Like the same apparition that I saw during my birthday in our house was was how I saw her, like in physical form. She wasn't see-through or anything. She would look like a real person. And when she came up to me, she was crying because she felt like she wanted to feel that sense of being a mom, but she couldn't have any kids. So when she asked for my permission, I hesitated at first, but then I realized if she's not harming my child, then I should give her the opportunity. And she has been there. So every time my daughter trips over something or accidentally falls down the stairs, she's okay, because I know she's there to catch her. And I told her, if you're not gonna hurt her and you're just gonna be her protector, I will let you, as long as you don't harm her. And that's the agreement that we've had for 4 years. Me and my daughter were in our room, and we live in a container house, so our room is kind of like tiny. Me and my daughter were watching TV in our room, and she was in a bouncy walker, and she was just bouncing and bouncing, mumbling things in the corner. And I wasn't really paying attention to her at first, and then I started hearing her mumble something, and then I hear a really faint whisper. So I pause the TV, and I look over to where she's at, and there she was, standing in front of her. And she's looking up, and she's mumbling things, like she's having a conversation with her. And at first, she was bending down like this, like talking to her and stuff. And I guess she felt my presence, or she felt me looking at her. So then she stands up, and she looks directly at me. She was about 6 feet tall, and her hair was all the way down to her legs, and it was like ginger orange, and it was curly. She was really pale, but her lips were pink, kind of like carnation pink. She looked like she had a small face, not elongated like mine. And when she spoke, it was like a lullaby. She sounded like a lullaby, really soft. And she didn't sound threatening. She didn't sound like she wanted to hurt anybody. She sounded really sad. So I kind of, in a sense, I felt her pain. So when she asked to help mother my child, I told her it was okay, as long as she wasn't gonna hurt her. Recently, she's actually come up to me, because she hasn't shown herself since that day, but she actually showed herself to me a couple of days ago. There was an incident where my daughter was running around and stuff, just being a normal kid, and she was running up and down the stairs, and she tripped, and there was probably 5 flights of stairs. When I went to go see, because I heard a clatter, so I went outside and I looked downstairs, and she was at the bottom of the stairs, but she was standing up. So I was like, what the heck happened? And I saw her that night by my bedside, and my husband wasn't home yet, and she was telling me that she almost fell down the stairs, but she was able to catch her before she could get hurt. My husband said he doesn't believe in the paranormal either, but he did once ask me, how did your lady friend look like? And I told him, I'm just she has a really long ginger hair, it's curly, and she looked like a porcelain doll. She's very pretty. And he just shook his head. So he didn't want to admit that he saw her, but I knew from the look on his face that he probably did from the corner of his eye. I believe she's just a really sad spirit, because she wasn't able to have kids of her own, and she wasn't able to make a family. That all she wants is to share in that space. And I don't want to deny her like anything as far as being a mother. But since we've already set the ground rules that I am the original mother and you're just here to help.
Since Aimy had proved to herself to have the ability to see entities that were not visible to others, she started experimenting more with a method called astral projection. Soon, she would learn a lesson about diving into things that are better left undisturbed.
This was when I was already here on Guam, and it was probably around the time that I was in middle school. But I remember this was way before Insidious came out, okay? But I learned about astral projection already. I was researching it because I found it really fascinating. And there was exercises on the website that I found how to do it. And I was trying to do it like every night before I go to bed. I want to see if I could do it and whatnot. But it never happened until I wasn't expecting it. Astral projection is like an out-of-body experience, but instead of you like not being conscious of it, you're aware that you're out of your body. Sometimes some people actually have it unconsciously, and when they figure out that they're astral projecting it, it's kind of like a jolt, and it pulls them back to their body. So I laid down, and I was in our house. Our house is like a 2-story house, and the bedrooms were upstairs. The kitchen was downstairs. I believe it was downstairs. No, it was upstairs with us. Our house there's a long hallway going this way, and that's where all the bedrooms are. And then when you turn the corner over here, this is where the kitchen is. When you turn the corner to the right, it's the living room, and then we have a balcony. It was one night, I was just laying in bed, and I didn't even feel sleepy. I was just daydreaming, I guess you could say. And then I felt thirsty. So I got up, and I walked outside, and my mom was already home, and she was in the kitchen. I guess she was like making a sandwich or prepping food for the next day. And I was asking her to get me a cup so I can get me water. But she couldn't hear me. So I was asking her over and over again, repeating the question until I got fed up. And I went next to her and I tried to grab a cup, and I couldn't grab the cup. My hand was going through the cup, and I was flabbergasted. I was like, what is going on? So I started screaming at my mom, asking her what's going on, how is this happening? But I'm not there. She can't hear me. So I run back inside my room, and I see myself sleeping on the bed. It's like an elastic band. It just snaps you back into your body. So like the third time that I did it, that's when I stopped doing it after I did it. Because I was doing my regular routine, going to bed, and then like just honing I guess I was meditating. I always meditate before I go to bed so I could calm myself and then daydream. And there's a specific way to do it. And if you have to stare at one thing and just focus on it, and then close your eyes and just picture it while your eyes are closed, and then you'll get out, because you'll see it and you'll try to reach out for it and touch it, and that's how you know that you're already out, because you'll be floating towards it. And it has to be somewhere high so that you can feel like you're reaching out for it. And I remember the thing that I used to focus on was the holders for the blinds. So there's a rod that holds the curtains, and like right behind it's the blinds. So like that's what I was always trying to reach for. So the third time I did it, it was already pretty natural for me. So I would just close my eyes, envision the rod, and I would automatically reach out for it. And that's how I know that I'm already out. And I was just like, it was already dark because everybody's, like I said, it looked the same. So there's no lights, and the only lights are the night lights. And I was like walking around different places, and I was just exploring the house while it's nighttime. I even went outside the balcony and I sat down on the railing of our balcony, And this is a 2-story house, so I'm technically swinging my legs and it's 2 stories high. And I'm just like, oh, I wonder if I jump, would I fly? After I passed that thought, I'm just like, probably won't do it because I might die in my sleep and I don't want to die. So I turn around and I go back. I walk back into the house, and I felt like really heavy, and I haven't felt like that before, and I was thinking something's wrong. So I run back, like I rush back to my room, and I see myself sleeping, and I see this dark shape looming over me. And I was shocked, and I told the little shadow thing, I was like, get away from my body, that's mine. So I started fighting with this black entity. It just looks like a shadow, it's just like dark shadow. But though there was no light that could pass through it, because there was a nightlight right next to my bed, and I couldn't even see my nightlight. It just looked like somebody was standing there, but it was just dark mass. And I was fighting with it, and I was trying to get back into my body, but it took me a couple of tries to try to get back in there, because it felt like my body was resisting me. By the time I woke up, I was sweating. I was drenched in clothes and like cold sweat and stuff, and we didn't have aircon, and the fan was off. And I was like, I know that fan was on when I, got out of my body, so I don't know what happened. Probably that thing just turned it off, trying to kill me in my sleep. So that was the first demon that I saw. And then this one delves into sleep paralysis because they're interconnected. So sometimes when you astral project and you go cold turkey on it, you start having sleep paralysis. And what had happened was I was in that state of sleep paralysis, and I guess this thing invited 2 more things, and they were all like switching. They were hovering over me, and I could see like clouds coming out of my mouth. It looked like my life force was coming out of my mouth. It was like a Dementor. When you watch Harry Potter and you're Dementor sucking out the life, it looked like that, but instead of it being all cloaked and stuff, it was just dark mass. That's it. And they were taking turns sucking the life out of me until I woke up. And when I woke up, I was like spaghetti. I didn't know what to do with myself. I felt sad, I felt angry, there was a bunch of emotions I couldn't explain. I was crying, and then I was happy. I didn't know what to think of it, and that's when I stopped doing the whole astral projection. I stopped doing meditation, because I knew if I meditate, I would go back into astral projection and then go back to sleep paralysis. I've also figured that if I leave the TV on running while I sleep, they wouldn't attack me as much. So that's why every time I sleep now, I need to have background noise. I need to have either the TV running, I need to have either a song playing, a podcast playing, something that's making noise. And it can't just be an aircon or like a fan, because they can turn that off. They have that much power, and it scares me sometimes. Just because of the vibe that I got from them, it was all negative, it was angry, it was malicious. It wasn't like how the lady was when I first met her, which I was scared at first, but I didn't feel all of that coming from her. It just felt sad. That's all she felt to me was sad. But this was like intense. Kind of, you're in an abusive relationship and you're gonna get hit if you do something crazy. If you go out of line. That's how it felt like to me. It felt like if I move a single inch, they'll beat me up. I actually haven't seen any of the demons and stuff, but I have felt their presence. So, like, with them, it's very hard to pinpoint them when they're coming. And sometimes they just surprise. Sometimes it can even pull you out of your own bed. Because it has happened to me before. It looked like they were playing a tug of war, because I would see them pull and then pull. And all of a sudden, I just roll over and I fall. And when I came to my senses, I was on the floor with my blanket wrapped around me. They have that much power, especially even if you don't try to notice them, even if you try to shut them out, they have that control. Because they know in the back of your mind, even if it's just a little bit of part of your mind that they're there, they can hold on to that. It was actually my first semester in college, and I was telling one of my friends about it, and I usually stay over at her house. And we were on the phone talking about it, and all of a sudden the line just goes dead. I didn't hear any dial tone, I didn't hear any busy tone or anything. It was just dead, it was silent. And I'm just like, what happened? So I hang up, and then I call back probably 5 minutes later, and she answers the phone all hysterical. And she was like, Amy, you don't know what happened to me. You wouldn't believe what happened to me. And I'm just like, why don't you tell me so I can understand what happened to you? You can't just be screaming in my ear. I don't know what happened to you. And she backtracks and she tells me, you know how we were talking about your demons? And I'm just like, yeah. When the line got cut off, the industrial fan that she has in her room turned off because it was on the whole entire time. But that one was on, it turned off. And then all of the lights in the house turned off. And then she told me she was trying to call me back, and in the process of trying to call me back, there was a huge crash right behind her house. And behind her house, it was like jungle and stuff, and they had this giant tree, and it's thick. It's like probably the size of 3 coconut trees. But it was thick that you can't just like, you need a chainsaw to cut it. That's how thick it is. And she was telling me that that tree specifically fell over, like from the roots. It looked like it got yanked up and then dropped down. So the roots was still connected to this tree, and it's a giant, big, fat tree. And she said, like, around the branches of the tree, there was like really long strands of hair, and it was like really dark hair. And I was like, really? How in the world did that happen? And she was telling me, let's not talk about it anymore. Probably if we don't talk about it, it won't come back. She didn't know how to explain it to me. She didn't know how to, she even had a hard time trying to tell me the story because she was shaking. And she said she was sweating. She was so scared. She didn't know what to think. But she did have her mom and her siblings in the house, and when all the power turned off, they all rushed outside because they all heard the crash, and they all went to the tree. And they said all of them saw the strands of hair. And this wasn't just like strips of hair. This is like somebody had a full hand of hair and just strung it down the branches of the tree. I feel like sometimes when I tell my stories, things tend to come after the people that I tell it to. I was hesitant to say anything just because I also told this story to somebody. I remember telling him about my 3 faceless demons and stuff, and how, like, my experiences with them. And he had to call me the next day and tell me that somebody was yanking him out of his own bed. He told me that never happened to him until I told him that story. And I told him, like, are you sure you weren't just imagining it? Or, like, maybe my story just got to you? You know, because I was fully awake. Actually, my ex before my husband now experienced something like it, but he didn't believe it. It pulled him out of his bed too, but it was more of, it sat him up on his bed. And he told him to off. Yeah. So he was pretty rough with that experience, but in a sense he didn't let it bother him. It didn't even faze him. He just told him to leave him alone and stuff. I try to understand where they're coming from, unless it's something that I really can't explain. Did something bad happen to them when they were alive, that they had to turn into these kinds of demons or whatnot? But as far as the 3 faceless demons, I can't figure out what they want, where they came from, how they even attached themselves to me. But In my best guess possible, it would have been like because because I let the woman into my life, and that probably gave them the idea that I would be more willing to accept even malicious spirits to hound me down. That's why sometimes I say I feel like not just places are haunted, also people are also haunted. So it's not just the places that they go to, because sometimes they go to certain places and they bring things home. I've tried sharing my stories with my family, but of course, being Catholic and whatnot, they just say, "Oh, just pray, just pray. It'll go away. Just pray. It's just your imagination. Just pray." As far as my friends go, they like, I wouldn't say they disrespect it, but it's more of an interest factor, you could say. I used to share them a lot with my friends back then and whatnot, but after what had happened to my friend and the tree, I stopped sharing it because I felt like I was scared for them, because I felt I can't control these beings. I can't just tell them, "Oh, don't bother them," and don't go after them just because I told your story, kind of thing. Even though sometimes I say it, it doesn't feel like they hear me. Doesn't feel like they actually acknowledge that I'm trying to tell them to back off. It's more of they have a mind of their own. Like I try not to be offensive. I try not to disrespect.
Hey, see you in the next story.